Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I believe this is episode 14 now, and they really are flying along. We have an incredible episode where we are going to be discussing the brand new Happy Gilmore 2 movie. This is going to be kind of my full review, pros and cons, the good, the bad, the cameos. We are going to really dive deep into everything about this absolutely nostalgic movie, the good, the bad. There's so many controversial things. There's so much to get into with regards to this movie. But just before we get into it, we're going to touch on a few recent topics because we currently have Charlie Woods competing in the Junior Amateur Championships, which he is currently tied second in. Now that is pretty exciting development considering if he could qualify for the Junior Ryder Cup team if he gets a good finish in this. And also Tiger Woods has been actually there with him, obviously supporting his son, walking around and, checking out some of the golf. I believe he's been geared up in full Sunday red golf attire, golf shoes, everything. Looks like he's actually going to be competing out on the course. And that is the most amount of Tiger Woods news we have had for a while. Other news, Live JCB just happened last week. Absolutely incredible Live event. I was there the previous year and I was also there earlier in the week filming a new project with Live, as I'm obviously involved with one of the teams there. So I was filming a new project, which I can't quite tell you guys about, but hopefully will be coming out very, very soon. But it is a pretty big event. Bryson DeChambeau in the mix, Jaco Niemann winning. And I think it's about time we need to see Jaco Niemann bring this form into like a major championship because he's so good in these events. It feels like he's winning non-stop. Absolutely incredible golfer. I've been up close watching how he plays and his ball striking is absolutely ridiculous. His record is incredible. Other slightly sad news is I have kind of injured myself, hurt my neck a little bit. I feel like probably as golfers, we all have these golf injuries, which are just so incredibly frustrating. And my neck seems to be the one that kind of flares up the most. Just occasionally just tweaks it and takes about 3 to 5 days to kind of calm down again. Can't really move my head a huge amount at the moment. Very, very frustrating. Played golf yesterday with some friends and actually happened playing tennis today. Just any kind of rotational sports are really, really brutal on your body, especially as, we don't have access to all the physios and recovery side of things that professional athletes in these sports do, golfers, tennis players, etc. But guys, let's dive into Happy Gilmore 2. I want to spend most of this podcast talking about it, and I want to, try and cover as many topics as I can. And please do comment your thoughts on the movie below. I would love to hear your thoughts, the good, the bad, everything. So please do comment below. First of all, I want to discuss who is this movie for? Because there's about 30 years between the first and the second movie coming out. So the audience that the first movie initially captivated is now obviously a lot older. I watched this movie a lot growing up. Absolutely iconic. I cannot even tell you how many times I've seen the first Happy Gilmore movie. I think it's one of the best golf movies ever created. For me, the best golf movies would be Happy Gilmore and The Legend of Bagger Vance. If you haven't seen that, highly recommend checking it out. Absolutely incredible cast. You've got a young Matt Damon, a young Will Smith, and a young Charlize Theron in it. Absolutely incredible movie. A true story as well, I believe. So, yeah, great film there, but a very, very different film to Happy Gilmore. Now, the first film, slapstick, silly, kind of over the top, but still within a certain degree of bounds. The second film, crazy, silly, chaotic. Um, I really feel like instead of choosing to tailor this film towards their original audience, I feel like they tried to tailor most of it to a younger demographic. I think they kind of tried to do both in that they brought all those nostalgic elements from the first film, but then they brought a much more updated, kind of ridiculous graphics and all of these kind of effects, especially when it came to the end of the movie, which we'll be talking more about. So let's start going through the pros list that I've created. Pros, very nostalgic. Great nostalgia from the first film. Happy, Shooter McGavin. You had flashbacks of, his grandmother and all of these iconic moments from the first film. You had kind of a development of characters that kind of returned. You had kind of the son of the guy who got hit, who was Happy Gilmore's boss, who took the nail to the head. Thought that was kind of nice. You had, his wife who kind of had passed away, but kind of still made appearances in sort of flashbacks or dreams throughout the film. Obviously, Shooter McGavin, who's an iconic part of the movie. You had Eminem playing a kind of similar type cameo to what someone else played in the first film. So you did have a lot of nostalgia. It definitely felt like a Happy Gilmore film in that sense. You had, a lot of hockey elements, golf elements, kind of this weird mix of golf, but in a more casual, crazy kind of setting. A lot of drinking, a lot of swearing, shouting, anger, all of those kind of elements that we really expect from a Happy Gilmore movie after the first one. You had a lot of cameos, probably too many to count. I believe the last updated number I saw was something like 86 different cameos. And some of the ones I most enjoyed were, from the best golfers in the world. I thought Scotty Scheffler absolutely stole the show. Great cameo. Absolutely loved the him going to prison stuff. You kind of had the Happy teaching him how to punch someone, and then him punching someone, then going to prison, and kind of rounded off that story arc, obviously, from Scotty Scheffler in the PGA Championship, ending up in prison. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I thought Scotty was brilliant. I thought most of the golfers in it were very good. I don't think anyone let the team down. I think, there was a lot of golfers in it. You had some of the old guys, Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, all these kinds of guys. You had, even Lee Trevino. You had then your younger guys, Bryson, Rory, Brooks, Xander, Ricky, Jordan, all these guys making some really, really cool cameos, even if it was just short. Another one, Will Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris stole the show with his cameo. I thought that was amazing. When Will Zalatoris came out on tour, everyone was like, is that the kid who caddied for Happy Gilmore in that movie? Obviously it isn't, but there is some resemblance there. And I thought they paid that off brilliantly. I thought that was amazing. They played together in that kind of first round on tour. They had that locker room chat. I thought that was absolutely perfect. That was everything we wanted it to be. You kind of had Will Zalatoris holding this grudge over Happy, and kind of understandably after Happy kind of abused and choked him and whatever. And yeah, that was great. I thought, a few of the cameos were a bit of a miss. I think, there was probably too many cameos, but I'll leave that for when we start talking about the going through the cons list. Bryson and Brooks as well. Great to see some of the Live guys making a cameo as well. It was kind of nice to see that, they had this whole storyline about another league and, the Maxi League. And I mean, I don't think it's any shock that, that's kind of a bit of a take on what's going on in the world of golf and what's been going on these last few years, a bit more dramatized, a bit more over the top. But it was nice to actually see that they included, the Live golfers in these cameos and in the movie, and they were kind of all on the same side against, this crazy kind of criminal or outside league or whatever it is. You had a really nice emotional story arc with Happy as well. I think like you couldn't have really kept Happy's wife and kept everything perfect in Happy's life, right? Because the first movie ended, it was like he won, he got the girl, etc. So there needed to be a bit of a downturn in order to, build the story arc, get you invested in him, and have, Happy needing to get back out on tour, competing for something. So I think that's not overall surprising that, you know, I didn't love that she died like immediately. Maybe you could have saved that for a little bit later on in the movie or something, had something happen there. So, it was very sudden, but there was a large amount of time you had to bridge the gap between the first and second films. So it kind of made sense to a degree. And then Happy obviously having this massive downturn and everything like that. I thought Happy's family, his sons, were incredible in the film. I absolutely loved them. I thought, they added a good amount of humor. I thought it was very in keeping with the first film. They clearly took after their dad, but then as well having his daughter kind of balance that out. So you had that kind of nice, sweet, nice, normal character, a bit more like his wife was. And, everyone's kind of, trying to root for her, support her with her future as well. So that was very nice. You still had a good amount of slapstick humor, a good amount of references. I mean, probably too many references for me to even pick up on. It felt like every sentence was kind of a play on something slightly backhanded, a reference to something in the golf industry or to the first film or to a character. John Daly as well in the film played quite a big role, and they kind of, made him into this kind of alcoholic character, which is, kind of in keeping with everything. And, I think that all worked really, really, really well. If I've missed any pros, please comment them down in the comments below. That's kind of what I've got on my pros list. Oh, one more. The golf scene, I very much enjoyed the practice round that he had with these kind of three random golfers. I thought that was great. I thought it was kind of a great, very relatable thing where you've got like this one random guy on kind of a public municipal golf course, kind of a bit crazy, joining these three younger friends, and they kind of really don't want anyone joining them, and they're kind of very skeptical. Who is this guy? He's dressed really weird. I think very, very relatable. Loved that moment. Absolutely great. Also, I loved the fact that obviously he hadn't played golf for a few decades or whatever it was, touched a club in over a decade. So to have him come out and just miss the ball and all of these things, I think, again, very relatable to someone who, hasn't picked up a club in a while, that you are obviously going to struggle and it is going to be difficult. And, that is perfectly understandable. So that was great. Yeah, that's my pros list. If you have any more, please comment them in the comments below. Now to go through the cons list. For me, one of the biggest cons was I think it went a bit too over the top. I think at times it was a little bit too silly. It was a little bit too ridiculous. It was a little bit too, kind of unbelievable. In the first film, you kind of had, yes, some absolutely ridiculous moments, but they were still in the realm of somewhat possibility of reality, I guess. In this film, it really felt like it was a bit more over the top, and maybe that was to cater more for the younger audience, more so you could bring in a 10-year-old who, I don't know, maybe they had seen the first film or maybe they hadn't, but they could still watch and enjoy this film. So it was still kind of had that family dynamic to it. I thought it was just a little bit over the top. And that brings me on to my next point. The storyline, I don't think was kind of, it didn't feel like it meshed together very well. It didn't feel like it had a great amount of flow to it. There were absolutely great moments. There were some, great moments to the movie, which felt like a great development on the first one. But then there were moments which felt very disjointed, which didn't really fit, which kind of like, it felt like they'd been included. So they were like their own clip. It was like it was its own joke. And I've seen a lot of people making the comment of like it felt like one giant TikTok, or it felt like 200 TikToks stitched together. And I think that's kind of fair. It did feel like that. It felt like every scene, instead of building on itself like traditional movies might, it felt like every scene was, designed to be cut into a social media clip and designed to be its own joke. It was like every single scene was its own joke and was its own stereotype in golf, or was its own whatever. And I think that's what kind of disrupted the overall flow of the movie. The kind of, if you think about the first one, there are plenty of clips in there which you wouldn't cut and put on social media. With this one, it felt like they almost thought about it of like, right, could this scene be cut and posted on social media? And whilst that's great for maybe promoting the movie and getting a lot of people reposting content, it's not great from the perspective of building this storyline over, an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it was. Again, let me know your thoughts on the storyline. Would love to hear. It also felt just a little bit predictable at times. It felt like, okay, well, now Happy's in a bad place again. Now he doesn't have any money again. Now it's like, right, he's got to, win money to pay for his daughter. So it just felt very similar. It just felt, it's the same thing. Happy needs to win money to pay for something. Happy needs to play golf to win money. Like, he's not playing golf for the love of it, not for the enjoyment. So yeah, it felt a bit predictable, maybe especially towards the end. One part which I wouldn't say was predictable, but I'm not sure if I liked it or not, was Shooter McGavin's character story arc, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Now, Shooter McGavin, the bad guy of the first film, right? So, the villain, the antagonist. We kind of, he starts off the film in the mental institution, very much still hating Happy Gilmore, very much still psychotic. He gets out. He's going to join this new league. Gets broken out effectively of prison, sort of. Going to join this new league. So you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's kind of going to be Happy versus Shooter again. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Then he, throws coffee in the guy's face. Then he, runs away, and he's not having anything to do with this new league. And then him and Happy have this kind of fairly short fight. And it's like all of a sudden they're friends. It just felt bizarre. It just felt, I don't know. I think maybe it would have made sense to have Shooter, still on the old league. And maybe it might have made more sense to have it, yeah, as Shooter versus Happy again in the final battle of like Shooter's competing for the new league and Happy beats him again. Let me know. Is that what you would have liked to have seen happen? I think it might have made more sense. It felt very, very weird that all of a sudden Happy Gilmore and Shooter McGavin had like a fight for 30 seconds and now they're friends again. And like everything's under the rug. A little bit bizarre there. I think they didn't really pay that off as much as possible. Yeah. Is he good? Is he bad? I don't think we really know. Probably the worst part of the movie, or one of the worst parts, or maybe just the part I didn't enjoy the most, was the end of the film. I didn't really like quite how ridiculous the end got. I can kind of see what they were going for. It didn't really feel like it was in keeping with the rest of the film. It felt a little bit too ridiculous, and I think it's a fine line. I kind of understand what they were trying to do. I just think it was a bit of a miss. I think maybe they could have toned it down, maybe especially in like the special effects, the graphic side of things. It felt a bit too artificial, a bit too fake. And if you think about the first movie, it was filmed so long ago that, you know, special effects, graphics, all these kinds of things didn't really, well, they weren't as developed as they are now. So we didn't have a great amount of them. So you had some kind of ridiculous things in the first film, like the way Chubbs's hand, you know, he kind of was holding like the wooden hand. It was clearly like fake and things like that. And you kind of again had that in the second film, but then all of a sudden you had this crazy amount of graphics and special effects and things. And those two things didn't really blend together. On the one hand, you're like, right, well, that guy's clearly not got a fake hand, and clearly, you know, okay, I get that, kind of in keeping with the first film. And then all of a sudden you've got snow and fire and this ridiculous artificial golf course and, you know, this elevated green or whatever it is. Yeah, that's one part. The other part, and I've not heard anyone talk about this is the part of the film that annoyed me the most. Because at the end, when Happy Gilmore has to hole the final putt, and him and his caddy both jump on the green, and you know, you've seen the film, you know what happens, and as it's sort of spinning round, there was a loophole that they didn't touch on, and I've not heard anyone else talk about. Happy Gilmore could have gone round to the other side of the green, and without touching the golf ball, he could have tilted the green when he went to step on it and simply rolled the golf ball into the hole without needing to jump on the green, without needing his caddy to jump on the green, without needing to hit a putt, without needing to take an extra shot. He literally could have tilted the green for the ball to go in the hole. That was very frustrating to me, that wasn't, it was just this very obvious loophole that you felt like the other guy kind of used to a degree, with, you know, having someone stand on the green so that he could putt up to it. I don't know. I just thought that frustrated me. I was like, why can't you just go around very clearly, just stand on that side, tilt the ball into the hole, easy, you win, we all go home. I don't know. That frustrated me. Let me know if you guys thought about that. But yeah, bit of a, I don't know. I don't know if they'd considered that. The other part that I just thought there were too many cameos in the film. 86, I believe. I probably only picked up on 25, maybe 30, something like that. I would have had no idea that that was Eminem. I would have had no idea about, you know, most of the cameos other than the professional golfers. And I get that people want to be involved in the film. You had Paige Spiranak involved and all of these kind of other random guys in the golf industry. Did we need them involved? Could we not have just kept it, you know, 15, 20 professional golfers? No, I don't even think you need that many. You know, I think you could have very easily cut it down to 12 or 15 professional golfers who took part in the film, but it just felt like everyone wanted to be involved, and, you know, that's kind of fair. Also, have to credit Bryson DeChambeau, another absolute hit of YouTube video, getting Adam Sandler to take part in his Break 50 series. Last time I checked, it had 5 million or so views in just a few days. So absolutely smashed there. Fair play to Bryson. Did really well, and great timing. Obviously, they saved that for the release of the movie and everything as well. The other side, the worst part of the film for me, this was actually, I think, the worst part of the film, and I think this was the part that most people agree on as being the worst. The villain. I don't know. Could it be one of the worst villains we've ever seen in a film? There was nothing scary about him, nothing. intimidating. He was kind of this over-the-top, ridiculous character. It didn't really make sense that they gave him bad breath. It didn't really make sense how he met Happy in the supermarket. Like, he wasn't obviously the villain from that moment. There was no kind of mystique built up around him. I think it worked much better in the first film with Shooter McGavin. And, you know, he was kind of a bit of a dick from the start. Whereas this guy was kind of trying to, like, recruit Happy at the same time as destroy him. And honestly, bizarre. Very, very, very bizarre. I didn't think the character was great. I didn't think it was kind of well written. I didn't think the storyline around it was particularly great. Again, I think it would have made more sense to have Shooter on the opposing side, and again have this battle come down to like Happy Gilmore and Shooter McGavin, you know, Ryder Cup style match play, something like that. I think would have made a lot more sense. Also, you know, maybe you could have got some more long drive guys involved. That's an area, you know, I have no issue with Happy Gilmore, you know, hitting the ball far, but I think with the development of the game of golf, you could have, you know, played on the fact that we now have long drive guys. We now have Bryson DeChambeau who hits the ball very far. So I think you could have maybe incorporated that more into the story arc and been like, okay, maybe Happy Gilmore doesn't hit the ball as far as he used to because all these other guys have sort of caught up. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. Overall, I think it's not the best film, to be honest. It's a bit of a difficult one. I've seen some people say they went into it with like zero expectations, very, very low expectations. Therefore, the film wasn't that bad because they really didn't expect that much from it in the first place. For me, I don't think I had expectations of it being a great film, but when you have such a big budget, when you have Adam Sandler, when you have all these cameos, when you have all this money, all this access, you've taken all this time to film it, edit it, you've had 30 years since the first film, I think I just expected it to feel like a more cohesive, polished project rather than being this like disjointed 200 TikToks stitched together type thing. So I would love to hear your thoughts, guys. Comment below what you thought of the Happy Gilmore 2 film. Let me know. That's pretty much all I can think to really say about it. But I would love to hear your thoughts. And if I see anything else, if I think of anything else, I will feature them in the podcast next time. So make sure you stay tuned. Maybe I need to give the film another chance. Maybe I need to rewatch it. But I have to say, I don't really have the urge to rewatch it that much. So I don't feel like with Happy Gilmore 1, I felt like the rewatchability of it was very, very high. With the second film, I don't feel like it has that, at least for me, quite so much. But maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe I'll pick up on a few more of the jokes and things like that. So do let me know what you guys think. And as per usual, I will see you in the next podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. It really does help us out. And I'll see you next time.